agenda for today?
So I heard about Cisco Meraki through our CDW rep at Jason Hogan. I basically gave him my problem, and he said, "Hey, man, you need to check this out." And I checked it out.
Awesome. Yeah, I think everyone either through partners or maybe this is a lot of people's first time hearing about Cisco Meraki. So we'll be trying to cover an overview for those new people and also people who might have already been using Cisco Meraki in their environments and what their own network solutions might look like. All right, so I see most people have answered the poll, so I'll go ahead and close out the poll. And then here's our agenda for today. So first, I'm going to be talking about a little introduction to Cisco Meraki, and then I'll talk about why cloud networking might be something you're interested in your own environment. And then next, we'll be jumping into the case study, specifically looking at the LHC Group network, and Andrew will be talking us through some of his use cases that he experiences from a day-to-day basis. And so we're actually going to be doing a live demo of that network as well, so pretty exciting stuff there. And then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end, as well as an overview of the Cisco Meraki product line. So with that said, I will go ahead and dive right in. So we have free access points that we're going to be giving out to the qualified IT professionals on the line. It's an 802.11n AP with a 3-year cloud management license. So all that you need to do to receive this access point is to go ahead and give us a call and confirm your shipping information. So you should have received a reminder email before the webinar today, and just go ahead and give that person a call, your Cisco Meraki rep, and they'll get the access point right out to you. Okay, so a little bit about Cisco Meraki. So Cisco Meraki is the leader in cloud managed networking, and we're actually forming the cloud networking group within Cisco. So this is 100% cloud managed networking products, and we have products from wireless to switches to security appliances that will sit at the edge of your network and do firewall, content filtering, and finally a mobile device management solution that actually sits on your end clients, your iPhones and Android devices and so forth, and actually manages those devices from the cloud. So we're going to be looking at a lot of the benefits that cloud networking can bring to your environment, things like always up-to-date firmware and also pre-configuration of your devices as you send them out to remote locations. And this is something that Andrew is able to utilize really heavily in his environment as well. And the Cisco Meraki group within Cisco is one of the fastest growing verticals. So tens of thousands of customer deployments, and we're actually doubling our size annually, so it's been pretty exciting. So a ton of investment in R&D within the organization. So we're always bringing out new products and new features. We just recently launched our new 802.11 AC access point as well as some new switches. So exciting stuff will be coming out continually. So here's just an overview of a few of the healthcare customers that we support with the Cisco Meraki solution. Okay, so taking a step back into why cloud networking might be something you'd be interested in your environment. So these are just a few of the benefits that I see when I'm looking at how the cloud is applied to any industry, and these really hold true for networking as well. First, manageability, being able to manage a very distributed network from a centralized location, really cutting down the amount of time your IT staff has to spend moving around because they're actually able to get constant status updates and visibility into those networks from wherever they are. Scalability as well is greatly increased due to cloud type of solution. One thing, we don't have controllers that we have to worry about upgrading. So it's really easy to grow your wireless network, for instance. And we also are doing a lot of the work for you in the back end. We have data centers around the world, so as you need to scale, we'll be able to support those growth needs. And finally, cost savings. We find that when you're able to increase manageability, lower that operating expenditure, and also make scaling easier for you, lowering that CapEx, cost savings really falls into place. So here's an overview of the 4 products in the Cisco Meraki line. So we have our wireless access points on the bottom left here, and we'll be talking about these today extensively in the demo and in Andrew's LHC environment. We also have security appliances, so these are devices that generally sit at the edge of your network, doing firewall, content filtering, WAN optimization, VPN concentrators, all sorts of cool stuff. And then our MS Ethernet switches. These are our layer 2 access switches, 1 gigabit or 10 gigabit switches. And then on the far right, our systems manager. This is our mobile device management platform. And this is for, once again, managing those end clients, so the mobile devices themselves. And so this is the only product that doesn't require a piece of hardware. It just sits on those devices itself and allows the devices to communicate to the cloud, check in, give status, and also receive updates from the cloud and from administrators that are managing those devices. So all 4 of these products do have one thing in common, though, and that is the centralized management through the Maraki dashboard, and that's what you're looking at the center of the screen here, and this is what we're going to be using to demo the networks to you today. So a brief overview of the cloud networking architecture. So anytime one of these Maraki devices is actually sitting on your site, it's also checking in with the cloud. So you see here in the center here we have an access point, and it's communicating up to one of our data centers. So it's pulling down current configurations, giving status for different types of traffic that it's seeing on the network, so that the administrator on the left there can log into that cloud dashboard and get that status information, as well as make any configuration changes. So wherever these devices are located, whether they're in home offices or distributed sites throughout the country, those administrators can log into the dashboard, get status updates, and make configuration changes across all of those sites. So let me go ahead and jump into the dashboard really quickly so that you get a sense of what I'm talking about. Here is actually the live Cisco Meraki organization. And so we're going to see the differences between this one and Andrew's LHC organization in a little bit. But we have multiple networks that we're managing around the country. So as you see here on the right, we have 42 different networks that we're managing, and these are distributed based on, or organized based on their location, or maybe the device type that we're actually managing at that location. So for instance, I can type in our London office, and the 2 networks over in London will pop up, and we can get an overview of what's happening in those networks. Everything seems to be up and running as everything is green here. So 14 different devices, 2 that are offline, and a separate network with just 1 MX, and everything seems to be healthy there. So if I was interested in managing these further, I would simply click on this link, and it would take me to that London office. But for our purposes today, I'm going to take you to our Maraki Corp network. This is where I'm located in San Francisco. This one's just more exciting to look at. We've got a lot of clients, about 1,000 clients, and several terabits of usage, so you can check out all the different traffic types and clients that are currently connected. So here we're looking at wireless devices, switches, and security appliances that are all within a single location. And one of the things that the Cisco Meraki devices do that's unique from other types of networking equipment is we actually do layer 7 application fingerprinting and client fingerprinting. So here we're actually able to recognize all of the 1,300 clients that are connected to our network over the last week, and we can get some information about the throughput over the last week. So we can switch this to look at just clients that have connected to the access points. You'll see that that traffic type or the throughput over the last week might change a little bit, especially over the weekends here. We don't have as many users connecting to those networks. And I'm also able to get an overview of every client that has connected to an access point. And as we have over 700, I can really easily search for a specific client. Maybe I'll search for my own MacBook Pro, and here it is. I can click on this device, and it'll take me to an overview of my own device here and the traffic that I've been using on in my own computer. So here we can actually see that my username, katie.lane, and I've learned this based on the 802.1x login. So the access points are actually looking at 802.1x authentication requests and web browser user agents and bonjour traffic, lots of bits of identifying information that it's been able to grab just by listening to that layer 7 traffic. So here I know that it's an Apple Mac, OS X, and I know my 802.11 capabilities. So in on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. But more interesting than that, I can also see the type of traffic I've been using. So I can see here on the right, really heavy on Dropbox and several other applications. So here, this is interesting to learn what my particular client is doing. But if you recall, when I'm looking at the total clients, we're also able to see this application pie chart on the right. So understanding what applications the entire wireless network is using. So here I can see also Dropbox heavy on the entire environment, but also several other applications, Gmail, YouTube, Apple.com, Salesforce, and so forth. And I can expand this out and sort by my top used applications. And this is actually going to show us hundreds of applications that are being commonly used in our environment. So here this gives you a really deep understanding of how your network environment is actually being utilized. And from there, when we're talking later about how to make accurate firewall and traffic shaping policies, you first need to understand what's happening in your environment. So this is always what we recommend, getting that deep understanding of what's happening in your environment so that you can make smarter decisions about how to shape that traffic. So with that said, let's jump back into our overview here. And I wanted to quickly address some questions that people normally have about this type of architecture. A lot of people ask, wow, you're getting a lot of data through the cloud. What's happening? What does that communication channel look like from the devices to your data centers? And there's a couple important things to point out here. First is that we're actually only sending management data up to those data centers. So the actual traffic itself is never traversing the data center. We're just sending information about what type of traffic it is and how much. So we're not actually sending the data itself. So that's a really important caveat. So the data itself is actually going to stay locally on your own LAN or go directly to its destination somewhere else on the internet. So this gives us several benefits. We call this our out-of-band cloud management architecture. And this means that, for instance, say you lose internet connectivity to the cloud. We're not actually relying on that cloud for anything. So the local configuration on your devices is actually going to be on the device itself. So if you lose connectivity to the cloud, the switches will still switch, firewalls will still block traffic, and access points can still associate new clients that are connecting. Even if you lose power, the device comes back up, it'll still retain that local configuration. The only difference is new configuration changes won't be made until that internet connectivity is reestablished. So this allows us to be extremely scalable as we're not pushing traffic through the cloud or our data centers. We don't have a bottleneck, so it allows you to scale very easily to multiple sites. It also allows us to be very secure as we're not passing the user traffic through the cloud. We're able to be fully HIPAA and PCI compliant. So a lot of those things are very important to the LHC Group network. And finally, it's extremely reliable. We have multiple data centers around the world. So if something were to happen at one data center, your network would fail over to a secondary backup or even a tertiary backup. And we have 99.99% uptime SLA for that failover. So that was just a brief overview of the Cisco Meraki architecture for those people in the line who are new to Cisco Meraki. So that said, let's get into the really exciting part of today's conversation, actually talking with Andrew about his own deployment at LHC Group. So Andrew, are you back with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell me a little bit about your responsibilities at LHC Network or LHC Group.
So I started at LHC before we went public, and I was on the help desk and slowly moved my way into system admin and more focused now on network administration. and there's one other guy who sits in the network team with me, and there's two of us, and we manage everything. If it touches the network, it's ours. Core infrastructure, NOC, IPS, VoIP, LAN, WAN, interconnectivity. We have multiple MPLS clouds that we connect to, and all configuration, maintenance, and upkeep falls to us. So that's pretty much what I do.
Very exciting. And you have many offices, which we'll get into in just a second. I want to give everyone an overview of just the type of environment that you're supporting at LHC Group, because it's a pretty unique one, and you have multiple sites around the country. So can you tell us about some of the needs and basically the overview of your entire architecture, the different types of sites you're trying to support?
Sure. So LHC, we have our corporate offices, which is in Lafayette, Louisiana. It's 3 buildings. So one of those is our actual network operations center, and the other 2 are just executive suites, finance, payroll, and all the different players in our corporate offices. And we have hospice, home care, and long-term acute care facilities, our LTACs, spread out across the United States. So each one of those 3 kind of has a different setup. Our LTACs are located within hospitals, and then our home care and our hospice are kind of their own offices in that area. And we have 350 remote sites that connect back to our NOC using the ASA 5505s or pitch 501s for those that haven't changed yet. And we do split tunnel back to us. And then on the end of that, we have our Maraki devices that provide the wireless to them.
Excellent. So a lot happening there. So yeah, I mean, here on this slide, I've kind of broken it up to you have your main headquarters and then all of your remote sites that are tunneling back. But at the edge of all of those, using the Maraki wireless and some common configurations across all of those wireless networks. So a lot of sites that you're trying to support. So let's talk about some of the wireless requirements that you have as you are deploying a new wireless solution, some of the needs that you had.
Okay.
First, talk about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So the biggest need that we had was something that was easily manageable. Everybody's always saying do more with less, and that's one of the things we definitely wanted to do, is have something that was easy to manage, easy to deploy, something we could keep up with just 2 of us. At our corporate office, we have our wireless VoIP phones, our Cisco phones. We have some large conference rooms. And at our remote sites, they use the Android tablets to make visits in the homes and then come back and sync up. So
okay.
I guess for what we were looking for was lower cost of ownership, easy to deploy, manage, and maintain, something that was intuitive and something we didn't have to upkeep.
Right. Absolutely. And then you also have some interesting needs to support your new medical records deployments as well, right?
Yeah. We went to a hosted HCHP. It's a cloud-hosted electronic medical records, and they can sync anything they do on their device back up. So in order for us to give them reliability and connecting and not having to touch all these devices, we set up a SSID that's specifically keyed for those Androids, and whenever they're in range, they connect and they sync up.
Excellent. So we'll definitely show that configuration later on as well. And then a couple other wireless requirements that are obvious when you're talking about electronic medical records, HIPAA and SOX compliance, but also needing to do a phased deployment. So you don't have to buy everything all at once, being able to use the new solution in conjunction with your older solution that you are replacing.
Mm-hmm.
So basically this is the wireless network deployment that you went ahead and did. Can you tell us about how that deployment went?
One of the concerns we had was, like you mentioned, was at our home office, do we just rip everything out and put it all in and kind of, do our QA beforehand, our proof of concept, make sure it works. But there's a lot of moving parts to that, especially when we have, different buildings and doing the change it out from what we were using to what it is now. And by going through the proof of concept, we learned that it's a real seamless transition. We went from a Cisco architecture, the WCS and the WLANs with the 1242s and some of the 3500 series, but we could just drop these devices out there with the same security requirements set up on the SSID, and you can roam in between those different devices. So we could do a phased rollout, and it allowed us not to make that huge initial investment in order to continue this rollout.
Neat. That's great. So that was at your head office. What about when you were sending out new devices to all of your distributed sites as well?
It's really simple for us to deploy these. We have them drop shipped to the site. They email or call us, give us the serial number, and plug it in. They're PoE capable, and with the ASAs, we have a PoE port, so they plug in a network cable, they email or read us off the serial number, and we plug it into the cloud controller, and they get their configuration.
Excellent. So thanks for walking us through that. Let's go ahead and talk about how you've actually configured everything within your environment. So your different networks or SSIDs that you have set up across all of your various sites. Can you talk us through those as well?
Sure. The secure network and the guest network are probably the main ones. The secure network and guest network reside on the same device, but because they're separated virtually, there's no interaction there, which we have to keep separated for SOX and HIPAA. The secure network is just what it sounds like. It's a secure connection into all of our hosted applications internally. The guest network is just an isolated internet access network. The VoIP network is for our Cisco phones, our wireless phones that they roam around the home office with, and definitely don't have our IT guys, running off their desk without them so they can get in touch with them. And then the LHCA network is for our headquarter employees.
Okay, great. So with that overview, I thought it'd be a great time to go ahead and jump into your network and start looking at some of these, how you've actually deployed them. So I've gone ahead and logged in here to your network. So if you have multiple, these are all the different network sites that you have. So LHC is your home site or your headquarter office. Is that correct? Oh, wait.
The LHC is our standard remote office configuration. So that's where all of our hospice, home care, LTACs get their configuration.
Okay. And then your home office, this is at your headquarters site.
Yes.
Okay.
And the thought process behind that is they're pretty much the same configuration, but by separating them, if I need to make a change that affects the home office, there's no reason for me to impact all of our remote sites. So kind of separated those for that reason.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. So let's actually start with the home office. And I can show people a map that you've uploaded here of that site. You have several access points deployed here. And so from here, you can actually jump into any of these access points to get an overview of what's happening on this AP. So HQ5, so we can see that there were 18 clients that were currently connected, and now where it is located in relation to all the other access points in the building, and an overview of what's happening with that AP. So a lot of LAN information, what channels it's broadcasting on, and also what the Ethernet configuration is upstream. So here you can get the LDP information about an upstream switch, for instance. So are you able to use this to do troubleshooting and configuration, or troubleshooting to figure out if there might be an issue with a particular AP?
Yes, and not just the APs, but the networks in general. A good example of that is CIO called and said, hey, wireless is pretty slow over here. And I was like, okay, I'll take a look. He's usually not one to complain. So I went in there and I looked, and we actually had someone on our guest network that was doing 50 megs a second of sustained traffic, and there was no limitations set on our guest network, and I had to actually go set those limitations. And it's real simple to look on here and see where that spike was in usage, and then go and find the client. And then after I identified it was on the guest network, I went ahead and limited that our guest connections only had 5 megs.
Great. Were you able to find that through this view, or for the view, or through the client's view here?
When I looked at it, I looked at overview, and I just drilled into it. And then from looking at the overview, I saw where it was on the guests, and then went to the guest networks, and then I went to the clients.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, so you're able to look on this page, find what network it was on, and find the client specifically through that way?
Yep.
Cool. So let's go ahead and look at how you've actually configured those SSIDs. So here I go to configure and then SSID, and I'll get an overview of those 4 SSIDs that we just talked about. So here we can actually see that an overview of what's happening. They're all configured with WPA2 PSK. Your guest has a splash page and also some bandwidth limitations. And you're making them all part of the local LAN as opposed to NAT mode. So NAT mode would be using the access point as the DHCP server. So here you have probably an upstream switch or upstream device that's handing out a DHCP IP address.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep, they're the Cisco 3560s.
Excellent. So here, if we want to dive in a little further, we could go to this access control page. And here we can actually select one of those SSIDs that we were just talking about. So here we are on the LHC Secure. So once again, you're using this network for all of those. For the tablets that the nurses are using to connect back to the electronic medical records. Is that correct?
Yeah, they fall inside that LHC-Secure. We also have our laptops that connect to that as well.
Okay. Okay, so this has got to be completely separate from that guest traffic, right?
Right.
So here we see that for your association requirements, you're using the PA2, PSK, no splash page here, obviously. And we can continue on down and see that you've put the IP address in bridge mode. So are you assigning any VLANs here or later on? Or
no. We're handling that at the switch level.
Gotcha. Okay. So here you could, if you wanted to, assign a VLAN based on the SSID, but assigning that upstream. Okay, great. And then here you're also disabling legacy bit rates. Is there a particular reason for that, or any devices you're trying to?
No, I think that was just there.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Good deal. Okay, so that's an overview of the secure. Let's see how that differs from maybe the guest configuration. So pretty similar, same here with the WPA2 PSK, but now we have a click-through splash page. So are you using the Maraki splash page, or are you redirecting to a separate splash page?
I think it's the default Maraki.
Okay, great. So just for those people on the line, here we have a splash page tab as well. And so you can go ahead and here you can use one of the splash pages that's built into the Maraki dashboard. So check the theme, and here you can customize the splash page with logo or messages, for instance. And so here you can get a preview of that splash page. or you can redirect to your own splash page if that was something you were interested in doing. So here back on our guest network, then here once again using bridge mode. So I guess in this network, using that upstream switch to really segment the network. Great. So let's talk about the firewall and traffic shaping rules. So you're mentioning how you were able to see that guest traffic that was exceeding a certain bandwidth and go in here and dial that down. Is this what you use to change the policies?
Yes.
Excellent. Do you want to walk us through what you've done here?
So on our wireless networks, we really wanted to, on the guest side, limit access to iTunes, Google Search, YouTube, Pandora, Hulu, Spotify, and social web and photo sharing. A lot of these are as they come and as we notice they're becoming a problem. The guest network, users find a way to get connected. We do give them, the information so they can have their doctors who come in and visit or any type of sales reps connect. So they like to connect and still use up our bandwidth on that pipe. So this is kind of our way of trying to keep control of that.
Gotcha. So you're actually able to look at what the type of traffic is actually being able to use and then update this as you go.
Correct.
Excellent. Yeah, that's really what we recommend as well, getting an understanding of what that traffic looks like and then making those traffic shaping decisions. So here you're not shaping any traffic, but you are imposing a per client bandwidth limit, 5 megabits per second. Excellent. Okay. Let's look at how this might differ from that secure network we were looking at. So here, pretty open. So wanting to make sure that those devices get access to whatever they need, right?
Right.
Excellent. I'm getting a question for you, Andrew, and I have my answer to this, but I'm curious what your experience is. Question about how long does it take the configuration to replicate across the different devices? So when you're changing a configuration or maybe a layer 7 firewall rule, how does that replicate to all of the other access points?
For me, on how we just make the change here and it pushes out to the associated devices. I've never had it take longer than a minute.
Yeah, it's pretty quick is what my finding is as well. Yeah, excellent. A question about showing the voice over IP settings. So let's go ahead and look. Here we are in traffic shaping already, so let's look at your voice network. Do you have any DSCP tags set here, or is that all upstream as well?
Yeah, we kept that upstream too. It's handed out at our switch.
Gotcha.
There's no issues with it passing through, so I just haven't got in there and had the Maraki do it.
Yeah. So just for those people on the line who might be curious, I'm going to show you on our network here. Oops, the wrong tab. If we go to Firewall and Traffic Shaping, here, really easy to set a tag on a specific type of traffic. Here, for instance, I can select voice over IP and video conferencing. And here you can select from these applications that we've already identified. And you can also create a custom expression as well for a specific IP address range or port or specific subnet. And from there, here we can actually choose to ignore the SSID limit, or maybe you want to go ahead and obey it. And here you can actually set a DSCP tag, so 7 for voice, for instance. So really easy to implement that at the access point if you so wish. Let's see. So a question for you, Andrew. How are you segregating data between your corp and your guest SSIDs?
They are set to, the guest network is separated logically by VLAN per request. So anything that comes through off of the guest network, I'd have to go back and really dig into this. I know we had to for our HIPAA compliance, but we separated by using the VLAN tagging and associated ACLs on allow or deny.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and so that's a great way to do it also. And if you want to do it at the access point as well, it's actually extremely easy. Here we talked about how you can set those VLANs at the SSID or at the SSID level back in access control. But here you can also, if you want to, choose to deny access to your local LAN for that guest traffic. So that's going to automatically block any traffic that's destined for a private class A, B, or C IP address range. So automatically dropping that traffic, so really giving internet-only access to those guests. Obviously, if you want guests to be able to access any local resources, you need to tweak that a little bit. But that's an easy way to do it in a couple of clicks to go ahead and segment that traffic. Also for those guests, if you, another easy way if you don't want to sign via VLANs, you can actually use the NAT mode that we talked about back in access control as well, to use that access point to push out an IP address through the DHCP server in the AP, and then segmenting that traffic here through a layer 3 firewall rule. So a ton of options, all great options for segmenting that data. Let's see, another question for you, Andrew, since we're going through some of these questions that are coming in. A question about how much help did you need from Maraki support to install, and what has your experience been with the support?
Support's been awesome. When we did the proof of concept, they gave us a system engineer, and as far as technical support, I've never had to reach out past the how-to technical support articles. They got a great database in there with even, you know, we had some disassociation issues, and all I did was type it into their, you know, tech support, and it came up with do this, 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 and I was able to do it. When we did the proof of concept, we had a lot of interaction where how we can accomplish everything, and it was real friendly and it was good. They would log in just like this, you know, with a WebEx, and kind of just walk me through it. So it's been great.
That's great to hear. Yeah, we do have a ton of resources out there, as Andrew was talking about. So the main ones are docs.maraki.com. There it is. And this is going to be your overview information for configuring wireless and security appliances and switches. You can click on any of these to get those guides on configuring different parts of that device. But if you can't find what you're looking for here, if you have kind of one of those corner cases, we also have a really great knowledge base, and it's kb.maraki.com. And here you can search for anything that you might be having an issue with. Here we have a couple popular searches. Disassociation, if I spell that correctly. And here we can talk about wireless disassociation using WPA2 PSK. So someone who might have had that experience, and these are all articles written by our support and engineering team that would walk you through any specific corner case that you might be experiencing. And we also have support actually built right into the dashboard as well. You can actually submit a case right here from the dashboard. So help, cases, and here we can go ahead and give an overview of any current cases and create a new case as well. All right, let's see. So a question for you, Andrew, how do you manage the access points if the internet goes down?
The only thing that we worry about when the internet is down is that they don't receive changes. When the internet comes back up, it checks in with the cloud and gets the latest change. So if you have a very static configuration, they continue operating as normal, and then if there is a change when it comes back on, it gets that change.
Right. Yeah, I mean, generally we find that if our customers do have the internet go down, their main concern is going to be getting that issue back up as opposed to making any wireless configuration changes. But yeah, as Andrew mentioned, as soon as it comes back up, the first thing that device will do will be to go in and check in with the cloud. Now, if you don't have internet connectivity when you're setting up the device, you do need internet access to actually log into the dashboard and configure the device and make all of these deep configuration changes. But we do have a local configuration for setting up a few basic things, static IP addresses or VLANs, for instance, switches. So you can do that, but all of your major changes, we definitely, you need to go into the dashboard to make those changes. All right. Another question for you, Andrew, a lot of really awesome questions coming in. Have you ever had to deal with employees bringing in unauthorized devices to the network? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Yes, for when the big iPad started flowing through the ranks, we were not poised to really support those. And still today, they don't have the IT stamp of approval here. But we can deny by group. So we can say, right, all iPads, iPhones, we'll deny those from getting on the network. We do have our executive guys who say, hey, I'm not part of this, and we can make exceptions for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so I'm not sure how you're implementing that. You can do that through the Maraki access points. As we talked about earlier, we actually identify device types just based on that layer 7 client fingerprinting, so we know which type of device is trying to connect to the network. So on a per SSID basis, you can actually assign group policies based on those device types. So here you could just select all iPads and then go ahead and block every iPad, for instance, from getting onto that SSID. So there are really simple ways to do that. All right, so we covered a lot here. Let's jump back into the slides, and we'll probably have a couple more minutes for questions at the end of the session. So we've actually talked about this in detail already, how you have that secure network configuration set up. Anything else to add here about your mentality when you were creating these policies for your multiple network groups and use cases throughout your organization, Andrew? Or if you covered it all, then that's fine too.
I think I have.
Yeah. Excellent. So just kind of wrapping up a few of the benefits of the cloud that really made a difference when you were implementing this solution, managing those hundreds of sites. You have over 350 remote sites, I think you said. So being able to manage all of those and make a sweeping change across all of those locations, essentially from the dashboard, as well as being able to very easily deploy new devices and making it easier for you and I guess the two people who are managing this network to cover that very distributed network environment.
All right.
Excellent. So I'm going to do a wrap-up, we've done one thing already, of the Cisco Meraki products really quickly that we've talked about today. We've mainly talked about our wireless access points. So we do have indoor and outdoor from very high performance to the more value-priced 802.11n and 802.11ac access points as well. And these have a whole range of features, many of which we did not get a chance to talk about today, but secure guest access, application traffic shaping, wireless intrusion detection and intrusion prevention built into all the access points, as well as mesh routing. We also have the access switches that I mentioned. So we have several models from gigabit access switches to 10 gigabit SFP plus aggregation switches. And these are pretty unique. They have the same layer 7 application visibility on a switch level that we were able to see on the access point level as well. So understanding what the traffic type is on a switch level is pretty unique and pretty cool, especially for troubleshooting issues that might be occurring on your network. We also have MX security appliances, and these are those firewall devices we talked about, many different models depending on what type of or how much bandwidth you're actually pushing through that device. So WAN optimization, content filtering, and intrusion detection on these devices as well through Snort. All right, and finally, Systems Manager. So this would be for actually managing in corporate-owned devices, or a lot of different use cases for Systems Manager. But if you want to be monitoring those devices themselves, and it's actually 100% free. So I actually use this at home to manage my iPhone and be able to track that phone if I maybe lose it, erase it, if I want to wipe it, or lock that device. And you can actually push out applications to hundreds of devices at a time, as well as security settings for those devices if they are corporate owned. We do offer free evals for all of the products we talked about today, free shipping both ways. So when you're calling to confirm that shipping information, definitely ask about some of these other products if you think there might be a fit for your environment. We'd be happy to set up an eval for you. All right, let's see if there are any other questions we haven't quite covered yet. A question about, can I create a temporary guest password that is active for only a set amount of time? So you can create, so no, the answer is no way to create a temporary password, but a lot of options for guests that are coming onto your network, especially if you want to create a guest user, and we actually have the lobby ambassador feature that allows you to enable a user to create guest access for new users that might be coming to a site and have only access to create those new users. A question about, for Andrew, so you did set up a splash page. If so, do you have any T's and C's that are displayed? And I think we looked at that. I don't think you do at this time, but there is a message box to enable that. Is that right? I don't know if I missed that.
Our splash page we haven't doctored up and made pretty. It's just the generic splash page, but we did mess with the logo, and then you can have T's and C's on an image that's put in there.
Excellent. Okay. Okay, question about, can I use Meraki devices if our sites use the internet via split tunnel VPN on Cisco devices to connect? And the answer is yes. I believe this is actually what you're doing, right, Andrew?
Right. We don't backhaul all of our traffic, especially in some of our remote areas. It's just way too expensive to put a T1 out there. So we do split tunnel. We don't backhaul. And these devices are behind a Cisco picture and ASA with a split tunnel VPN back to us and internet access going outbound.
Excellent. Okay. I think we've almost answered all the questions. One more that Olivia's conveying to me. All right, question about, do you recommend having passwords for all guest Wi-Fi locations? So, so you do in your environment, Andrew. You know, I guess it depends on the environment. A lot of times we have customers that don't, and there are a ton of options for associating those guests to the network. So here, all of those splash page options. So Andrew's using a click-through splash page, but also that WPA2 PSK. And
right. Our thought process behind that is we actually hand out little cards that have the password on it, and every, I forgot how many days, every 90 or 120 days or something, we actually change that, and then we give them new, you know, they print out the new card. So if a doctor comes to the office and says, hey, or we have a presenter come in for medical equipment or whatever, hey, can I get on the network? They just hand them the card, and it's not open because we needed some way to know, like, okay, who's on the network, you know. It's just a precaution.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you can do it that way. This is really where you have the most variability in your wireless configuration. So for Andrew's case, good to have that password. Also, if you have less strict policy requirements, you could leave it open, and we have customers that do that as well. And we have sign-on with Facebook Wi-Fi, for instance. So here you could have everyone enter their Facebook information in order to get on, as well as signing on via text message, so entering the phone number. This is just kind of checking to make sure people are logging on, and you can kind of track a little bit who's logging on. Also, billing for paid access. And this last one here, Systems Manager Sentry. This is actually going to integrate with our Systems Manager mobile device management product, so checking that you have the correct profile installed on that device if you really want to lock down your network this way. So tons of options here for allowing clients to associate, and all really dependent on your environment. Okay, a question about is the content filtering per AP or per device or per SSID or network-wide. So content filtering is really on our security appliance, not on our access points. But there is one content filtering option here. I believe you have to be in NAT mode. So this would be mainly for a guest network, for instance. And here you can just block adult content. So really a few options here for content filtering, but not a true content filtering system on the access points themselves. Let's see. A question about can you set up hourly restrictions on the guest wireless? So yeah, we can set up SSID availability, and here we can actually decide if you want to schedule this SSID for a certain time. So here you just drag these back and forth to the correct times that you want. All right, and then another question, I think we're about out of time here, and I want to let Andrew go, but can you limit the number of clients per wireless LAN or per access point? And no, there's not really a way to do that. So probably your best bet here is just limiting the bandwidth. So hopefully we've answered all your questions. I want to thank Andrew so much for joining us. You've given us a really great insight into your network, and thanks for answering all of these questions with such depth. So really appreciate you joining us today.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and hopefully we've answered everyone else's questions online. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to see in the future. And hopefully I'll see you at another webinar.
The organizer has ended the session, and this